Hello, Neil Petrie on Free and Equal, delivering the Tice report. Last night there was a meeting in Barnsley for Reform UK. About 100 turned up, laid on especially because Richard Tice was coming to talk to the group. Now, prior to this, I had in the past given my book to Nigel Farage on direct democracy. One vote away, saving the West. Basically, I'd ambushed him outside of, it was GB News, on a smoke break. So what I wanted to do was to go and see Richard Tice at this meeting because I'd been invited along to have the opportunity in a Q&A or a personal meeting with him. We didn't know which, the invite was just to turn up. So we prepared for both eventualities really. Fortunately for us, there were seats at the front available when we went. So we took our seats there and had the real opportunity to see Richard performing up close on the stage. The meeting started with David White talking about the Reform campaign and the issues that he's seeing. David is in fact the Barnsley South candidate for Reform UK. Now, he introduced Richard. Richard Tice came up and gave, to be frank with you, a better than expected speech. He performed very well indeed really in terms of getting his message out there, but what was missing was direct democracy. So the message has not sunk in, although as we know, since I delivered the book in fact to Nigel in October last year, he has been speaking fairly routinely now on the issue of Switzerland, how well governed it is and how useful their direct democracy processes are to that country. In fact, he notes that they can put forward issues that they want to see addressed even if the government is not addressing them, because of the nature of their laws in Switzerland, which first came out in 1848 when they started down this process of using direct democracy and the tools of direct democracy to take control over the politicians and over the parties, which is something that we've waited a long time for and still have not achieved. What Richard did talk a lot about was on leadership. Now, this all sounds great, but in fact, to my mind, it always brings me into the thoughts of control. Leadership and salesmanship, they're pretty much the same thing, you'll find. A good speaker, that's important in politics. And in fact, Churchill had said many years ago to some people at the Oxford Union, at the talking shop in Oxford, at the university there, he'd said that if you can talk in this country, you can do anything. So this is why we've had 40% of our prime ministers from Eton. Eton, in fact, has a very strong debating society. And that debating society recently, less than 10 years ago, had an extra debating hall delivered and paid for by one of the fathers of the children there. So 2015 this was set up, and it was £18 million. But that gives you an idea how the people in Eton understand the power of persuasion. But they're not alone in this. We have the same with the hard left. So you've got the rich on one side training their children to become politicians, to become good speakers through Eton and through the Oxford Union, and eventually onto prime ministership, ministers' roles, etc. Leading us, yes, leading us where they wish to go, where their parties tell them to go, and where the backers of the parties control where they will go. So the communists have done very much the same thing. They have the vanguard. The party is the vanguard, leading the rest of us to wherever they wish to take us. Now we have in control at the moment. We've got the Eton Brigade, basically the banker, yes, man of the right, the banker, in control, and that is obviously his time is over. Rishi will disappear. However, what we will have replacing him, in all likelihood of course, is Starmer, a lefty, a man of the left, and behind him are many others of similar ilk. Again, as a barrister, he's not the greatest of speakers, to be frank with you. He's not. However, he has behind him many others who are quite capable, and the left has understood the power of persuasion, which is why the communists have always infiltrated very heavily those unions and those other institutions that they can get into and control once they get to the centre and use their powers of persuasion to take over. This is very common and is a normal technique on their part. So in both cases, it's a strategy of divide and rule. The aim is to control whoever they wish to lead, the mass. They don't want the mass understanding how they operate. They don't want the mass taught about these tactics, and they don't want the mass understanding that education is what is really important. But it has to be broad-based. It's not one that is funneled by diktats from central offices who are run by those very same parties of the left or of the right. So, tactics, at the moment what we've got is give people fancy talk. This is not leadership. This is salesmanship. They are selling you a false vision of what democracy is. And in fact, that is also the issue that we see, is people look towards the charismatic figure, that individual who can persuade through their tongue as to where the country will go. They've always got great answers, and they'll sell you a few lines, a few goods that you think might sort this out. They're not asking you to look too deeply or to take control using direct democracy. And direct democracy has proven since 1848, the same year as the Communist Party or the Communist Manifesto was printed. Look at Switzerland, established at the same time with its new constitution of direct democracy. China, Switzerland, which one? You make your choices. It's fairly obvious. So, back to Richard and his discussion. As I've said, he was looking at leadership, and he spoke well, he did, and he had facts at his fingertips, and I saw more of that afterwards when he was just talking casually to people. He was quite approachable, and he knew what he was talking about when he was being asked some particular technical questions. So he impressed me better live than he had done what I've seen on the screen. However, in the end, it's still about the party, but I will cover this more fully now. So after Richard had finished his speech, we had the opportunity for a Q&A. That's what we had prepared for. It was either Q&A or a direct discussion with Richard. I was prepared for either. So this was the Q&A, so we were ready for that. Now, I stood up and made the point when I had stuck my hand up and eventually got asked to ask my question. I stood up and made the point that I was from the direct democracy movement, and that Nigel in particular had been singing its praises, as the president, honorary president of the party. So I was trying to ensure that the party would be going in the same way, and that people would basically be having the final say on all laws that come out of our parliament, or being able to institute new laws on their own initiative. I did say that reform, if it was going to mean reform, if it was going to be meaningful, then there was the opportunity for Tice to make that happen and to bring in the issues or the tools that we can use under direct democracy, where we can have mandatory referendums, we can have optional referendums, and we can have initiatives, just as the Swiss do, to control the laws and to allow the people to decide what's important, and then to have a vote on issues that they have decided are those that are important enough for that to be put to a referendum. So I said you'd have the Tice reform if this went through. Now that's real reform. So basically I then made the point that I'd brought along with me a document which laid out our proposal as the direct democracy movement, which made clear all of these points at the various levels of government. And I took it out to hand it over. I served notice basically to Richard, and Richard looked a bit surprised, and he made the point, as you'll see in the video, that in fact he'd had something similar happen before, but in fact it was a legal notice that was served on him. So I think he was quite relieved there. Now I also made the point after I'd done that within reform we have a lot of supporters for direct democracy. A good number who are candidates and already sitting as councillors. The point is that direct democracy is not just powerful for people in reform, but I was making the point to Richard that he's got those people in there now who are very supportive of what we're doing. And beyond that, we've got people down in Brighton who are fully supporting us in a number of areas, from the left, the right, the Greens, it doesn't matter. The point is that this has cross-party appeal. So if any party picks up on this and uses it fully, and Reform is a large operator in this now, and it's the one that has the right name for this. So I'm trying to still get Reform to pick up on this and to go where Nigel has said, but go fully for it, to go for the whole hog, hence giving Richard the proposal that we had put together. Now, what Richard Tice spoke about primarily when he responded to me was about just referendums. But these are ones that, yes, there was some intimation that these could come from the people, but it wasn't clearly stated that the system would be adopted, that direct democracy as a standard operating procedure with the people fully in control as they are in Switzerland would be the way he'd take things forward. So that was unfortunate, but he did, as you'll see in the short video, talk about the use of referendums fairly widely, but we're still not quite there, not for the full, Swiss-style government. Now, that's missing an open goal in my opinion, okay, because the opportunity is there, obviously. The Tories are losing hand over fist. There is an opportunity for Reform to pick up a huge number of voters from them, but beyond that, there will be many others who will be attracted from the left, from the centre, from the Greens, it doesn't matter, by this type of a reform. So that's why we're pushing it, and why I believe he's missing this open goal if he continues down this path of watered down direct democracy. We need a better option, because the country is in deep trouble. In deep trouble. We all understand this now. We're seeing what the issues are with not only with immigration, but with the controls on free speech, all of these other issues, hate laws, etc., that are restraining the British people. To what end, we can only guess. But the globalist element in terms of government control is obviously considerable now, hence the removal of Liz Truss and others in the years ahead, no doubt, as well. So, what is the plan then that they've got? I believe that Reform obviously plan to replace the Tory leadership at some point in the future when after this election. They have their 6-year plan that Nigel has spoken about. But what about going for one nation? What about a one nation party where we cohere behind the direct democracy principle, and we take that as being the lead element of our constitution, as A.V. Dicey had recommended in the 1890s, our greatest constitutional lawyer? Because DD is popular across the board, and if we're going to be a nation again, if we are going to cohere, if we're going to integrate, then we need that. And we need that strength of purpose that being together and pulling together will give us. So, I'll be wrapping up. Reform is about leadership, but it needs to provide real reform. Leadership into an area that some will like, but not enough. So what we need is someone who's going to be pushing direct democracy on top of our representative system to give the people real control, so we don't go down these paths that we've been led by the radicals, from left or right. So let's see that. The Tice reform should be about imposing on us as a constitutional issue the opportunity to vote on all major issues that we decide as the people are important, or to put forward ideas that we believe are important. So we're almost there with reform, but not quite. There is some tweaking needs done, but it's deadly serious tweaking. So we press on. The direct democracy movement presses on towards our target. Only direct democracy will solve our cohesion and our integration issues, and only direct democracy will provide the backbone and the direction needed to do so. Parties and partisan interests of backers are for the past, because leadership is really about control by cliques, and DD is the people, not parties running things. That's what we need to see, and that's what we need to have. So join us, stand for us, or vote for people who are supporting direct democracy. Those candidates need your support, and they need to make clear that they are backing direct democracy, not just the watered down version of an occasional referendum. So we're pretty much where we were before the meeting, maybe a bit further down the road, but our aim is still to inform, to reform. And not enough people obviously know about the system that we're pushing. We need to keep putting that message out there. So for us, I can see it's not this time. Next time, not this time. But in the end, we will win. Right, that's all for now on the Free and Equal channel. See you next time.